that I used to hang out in. So that has made this day really great already. And now I'm here to share another episode of the podcast with you guys. So it's an amazing day. Give me a second, I'm taking off my shoes. Okay, so today I want to touch on a topic that is really sensitive, for me at least, and I'm sure for a lot of other people, and a lot of people have their opinions about this topic. So we're just going to jump right into it. So the topic is going to be about abuse. And I don't want to just talk about abuse within romantic relationships between, people who are partners in a romantic relationship with each other. I don't want to just start there, because I really feel that it starts in our childhood with our parents, our relationship with our parents or our primary caregivers. And depending on the way that they interacted with us, that's going to be how we kind of interact in our relationships as adults, within our friendships, within relationships between people we're loving and intimately, sexually, all those kinds of things. So I kind of want to get a little bit personal in this video. I want to talk about my own experiences with abuse, and then I want to talk about that journey, I guess through healing those experiences that I had. So my experience with abuse started when I was very young. My mother was very verbally abusive towards me, physically abusive, all those kinds of things. And then I got a little bit older, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, and sexual abuse was introduced to that. So basically my whole childhood has been one form of abuse or another from people in my life who were considered to be my family, my safe space. So fast forwarding a little bit, my relationships and my thoughts around family is very jaded, and it's very hard for me so weird. If you're interested in the conversation, just come and say something. Don't stand behind the bush. Okay, so yeah. So my relationship with abuse is very, very intimate, very multi-layered. I probably shouldn't have used the word intimate, because that word can be very, used in different contexts. So yeah, just very layered. I've had, and then so then I said I was going to talk about the healing process. And so what that kind of looked like was, I remember being in denial that abuse had ever happened to me. I knew that the sexual abuse was wrong, but the verbal and the emotional stuff that happened to me, the outward, the obvious stuff that people always talk about, the physical and the sexual, where it's become normal in society for that to not be acceptable, right? So that's the first thing that we're going to be like, oh well, no. When I see that, I know that it's automatically abuse. But it wasn't until my late 20s that I realized just how much the emotional and the verbal abuse impacted me. And it kind of impacted me a lot more intimately or a lot more deeply than the physical and the sexual abuse did, because I had a lot more support and a lot more methods and outlets and ways of, that's how that person shows love. They love you anyway. And it's like, yeah, but this is not feeling good to me. Like, this is not feeding my soul. This is not making me happy. This is not hiring my vibration. It's not feeling good. Like, and at the end of the day, we come to realize that, like, if something doesn't feel good, then it's not good, period. Like, at some point in our life, we've been made to feel guilty for wanting to do things that feel good, or like it's a bad thing, like, oh, if this feels too good, there must be something wrong with it, or there must be, we've associated good feelings with negative things, like drugs and sex and all of that kind of stuff. But really at its core, when something is not feeling good to us, it's not a vibrational match. That's our body and our heart and our soul and our spirit's way of telling us that we are not aligned with whatever that situation is, and that's why it's not feeling good, right? So yeah, like, I was going through this whole thing, and so I went through that whole phase of like, oh, you have to respect your parents, and no matter what they do or say, you still have to, blah blah blah, and still have them part of your life and all this kind of stuff. And so I kind of held on to that for a long time, and the only way to really be able to do that is to be in a state of denial. Like, you can't admit that happened to you and still physically be able to be in the same space as the person who did it. So then you tell yourself, that didn't really happen. It wasn't really that big of a deal. They didn't really mean it that way, or whatever the case is. And it's like, they did. And deep down inside, that kind of, on a more intimate level, or on a more mindful level, or on a level of understanding, like, how that really impacts you, especially as an adult. Like, yeah, this happened 20 years ago. For me, more than 20 years ago, these things happened to me. And kind of where I'm at now. I do want to, so I'm going to kind of go through a little bit more of the healing process, but I'm going to kind of like state it in a more direct way, and I'm not going to go as much into detail. And then we'll talk about like the beautiful place that I'm in right now. So, alright, so the first step for me was denial. I was denying that it ever happened. And then I moved into the stage of anger, where I was mad at everybody in my family, and I was like, I don't want to be around any of you, I don't want to talk to you, I don't want to hear anything from you. It was just like, it was me setting boundaries, but in a like angry way, in a vindictive, in a like lower vibrational way, basically, right? And so I stayed in that for a while, and then I would say the next step out of that was just sort of like an acceptance, like an understanding that my mom is a human being, and just like she couldn't keep me from going through certain things in my life, her mom couldn't keep her from going through those things in her life either. So like all of that to say, like we're all human and we're all trying to figure this shit out. Like at the end of the day, that's really what it all boils down to. We're all just trying to figure this out. real, and as much as it did hurt me, holding on to that resentment and that anger and that bitterness and that everything else that it wasn't serving anybody. Definitely wasn't serving me. And at the end of the day, I don't think that it was serving her either. And so I just made the decision for me to just like let it go. I was holding on to like, you know, how could a mother do that, and how could she stay with him, and how could she say this, and blah 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 blah. And it's just like, no, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it anymore. Like, holding on to all of that, not doing it. So I went through that phase, and that was really beautiful. It was peaceful. It opened up the space for us to build a relationship if we wanted to. And we tried. We would go on like dates or whatever, and have lunch and dinner together, and go shopping and whatever. And that just kind of fell apart naturally on its own. And it was just kind of like, okay, well, you know, it just kind of showed me that longing that I had to build this loving mother-daughter relationship with my mom was like it was like a lie. It was like I don't want to say fantasy, because fantasies to me are like really cool things. So I'm trying to find out, like, it was basically a lie that somebody had told me that I should want, and it wasn't really what I wanted. I hope I explained that in like the right kind of way. Yeah, like it was like I had been told for so long that, or I had seen that relationship with other people and like envied it, I guess, in a way, or like it made me jealous, or it made me feel like, why don't I have that with my mom? Like, why can't we have that? And so it kind of healed that whole process of me just being open to it happening, and not trying to control it, and not trying to say like, this is what I want it to look like. Just kind of letting it unfold the way that it naturally did, and seeing the results of that, and just being like, okay, well, that's what it is. Like, it wasn't what I expected it to be or what I wanted it to be, but it just is what it is. And finding peace within that was big for me. That took a long time though. Like, that took a really, really, really long time. And so I would say like I maybe reached that point 3-4 years ago, and then now I'm at a point where I'm not speaking to my mom again, but it's from a space of, I can't say that I love myself and still share a space with her. It's just at that point. I'm choosing myself. I'm choosing my emotional well-being. I'm choosing me. I'm making the decision to say, my relationship with myself is 10 times more important to me than my relationship with anyone else, and that includes my mom. And it just is what it is. Am I upset? No. Am I holding anything against her? No. Am I going to accept how she behaves today? No. Yeah, I accept it, but do I, like, I don't need to be around it, is the point. So yeah, and then I'm sure there's another place where those feelings can go, and another way that they can express, that they will maybe express themselves later on in the future. We'll see how that goes. So yeah, that's that's kind of like where I am now with the whole situation. And so now I'm going to kind of transition into talking about what that looks like in romantic relationships. Like for me, I'm heterosexual. I like men, so I for now anyway. I like men, so my relationship with men and how that has been a mirror of my relationship with my mother and my father and other members of my family. And it's been like, if I'm really, really honest with myself, it's been like the same relationship being played out over and over and over and over and over and over again. And it's like, you don't realize it right away because the same exact things don't particularly happen. Like, that person is not going to be wearing the same color shirt in every situation. Like, you know, that kind of sounds out of the way, but like the same actions are not going to be taken by the different people, but you're going to feel like I felt the same way in every one of those situations. And it wasn't a good feeling. But because I had been taught that that was what love was, I stayed with it. But deep down inside, I knew that that wasn't it. Like, even as a kid, I knew like this wasn't like, this is not the way that parents should interact with their kids. This is not the way that kids should feel about their parents. This is not it. Like, this is not what this is supposed to look like. At least not in my world. Like, if I would ever build a family of my own, that's not what it's gonna look like. So, and like, I'm adamant about that. Like, I know everybody says that, but I've come to a place in my life where I have just chosen to believe that it's all happening for a reason. Like, everything that happened to me when I was a child, everything that everybody did, everything everybody said, was all working in my favor. And it has taken me a long time to get to that point where I can say that and be at peace with it and see it for really what it is. But yeah, it was working in my favor, and here's why. Because now I get to take all of those experiences and pass them on in a loving way to others and use them to love myself even better, or even deeper, right? So that's kind of like where we are with that situation. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about like the stigmas around abuse, whether it be from your parents, like parent to child, or child to parent, or husband to wife, or wife to husband, or husband to husband, or wife to wife, or however you guys are out here doing things, or experiencing things, however we're all out here experiencing things. How it, like, all everybody's ideas towards it. So, like, you know, like the typical feeling towards it would be that I'm just so distracted with like these cars driving by and people walking by and all kinds of stuff, but I'm gonna keep going. So what was I talking about? Okay, so I was talking about the way that people, or the opinions, the popular opinion around abuse, right? People are like, you know, if it's in a romantic relationship, it's like, why would you stay with that person? Why, you know, a person who loves you wouldn't XYZ, blah, blah, blah. But then when a parent does it to a child, or a child does it to a parent, it's like, oh, that's your mother, that's your father, that's your son, that's your daughter, that's somebody in your family. You're, no matter what they do, you're supposed to love them. No matter what they do, you're supposed to forgive them. So it's kind of like, first, why don't we pick, why does it have to be, oh, because of this, it's this person, I behave this way, and because it's that person, I behave this way, and because it's like, why does it have to be all fragmented? Why can't it just be, no matter who does it, abuse is unacceptable, no matter who it comes from, right? And then there's this other piece to it where it's like, when the abuse happens now, does that automatically mean that that person didn't love me? So I'm kind of at a space now in my mind where I don't remember ever. I'm sure that I was at some point a person that would have answered that question and said, no, if they love you, they can't, like, they wouldn't XYZ, they wouldn't hurt you, whether it be emotionally, physically, whatever. But now I'm in a space where the answer to the question is so much more complicated for some, but very simple for me. The answer, interesting. Do they still? The answer would be that, like, for me at least, it would be that is up to that other person to decide. Whether it's love or not. For me, being the receiver of whatever it is that they did, I also have to make the decision for myself whether it was love or not. And for me, I'm gonna say, yeah, it is. That's the thought that just keeps popping up in my head. It is. Is it like the ultimate type of love that we want to experience in life? No, it's not. But it's still beautiful to me because it's taught me so much about myself. Like going through these abusive type relationships with people. And I keep using these quotes because we have like the societal definition of what abuse is, right? And it's like, oh, this person verbally abused me, or like said mean things, or they gossip about me, or whatever the case is, right? That's verbal abuse. And then physical abuse, they punched me, they slapped me, they kicked me, they did whatever with their body did something with their body to harm my body. And so, like I've been through all of those different kind of situations in one form or another. And I will tell you that there are different levels. Like there are different ways that abusive relationships present themselves. Everyone is not going to look the same, but there are stages that they all progress through. physical. In some, it's only been like threats, or threats of physical violence or whatever the case is. In some, it was just verbal. In some, it was just emotional. So like, and then even within all of those, emotional, verbal, abusive, physically, all of that stuff, even that looked different and had like different feelings attached to it, right? I keep pausing because as I'm talking to you guys, downloads are coming into me, or coming in for me about my own situations. So bear with me. Keep this talk on track, I took some notes. I'll pull them out. Instead of reading it to you guys, I am going to post the link for my blog underneath this, in the description box underneath. And or if you're listening to this on Spotify, and the one's picking up, so that means that I need to go ahead and get off this. But if you're listening to this on Spotify, I would like for you to go to my YouTube page, which is Trust Yourself Tarot, and under my podcast videos, there will be a video for this where you can actually see my face, and in the description to this video, there will be the link to my blog, and in that link, on that blog page, I will, I'll name it the same thing as the name for this video, and I'm going to post what I actually wrote down in my phone. So yeah, if you want to, and it's like a bunch of it's a little bit more in depth about my personal experience with abuse, a little bit more eloquently than I think I had been saying it, because I'm more of a writer, but I am pushing myself to be a little bit more vocal with things, like actually, verbalizing things using my throat chakra. A little bit more like in an outward way, other than just writing everything down. Just kind of exercising all of my modes of expression, not just my writing. But the writing piece is going to go more in depth into my personal experiences, how I kind of healed through that process, and most importantly, the gems that I got through reflection and through meditation. Through healing through those processes. So I'm going to be talking about signs of abuse, like how do you know from the beginning, from the get-go, whether a person is abusive or not. How do you trust yourself more when you're feeling things and you're like, I'm not sure because other people are saying this, but this is what I'm feeling. All of that's going to be addressed in the blog, in my writing. So